Comedy Club fans, Comedy Club fans. Hello, welcome to a brand new thing. You've seen me interview famous people from Doctor Who and YouTube on Tom Mason on the Blue Box Files podcast. You've seen me interview Alex Horn and then 23 other people on the Weird Side. And you've seen me interview Swedish and New Zealand people over on Taskmaster World. See, I remember these things. And now we've got a brand new series on the British Comedy Guide. That's it. Yeah, the British Comedy Guide website. They have something called Random 8, where 8 questions random. It's all self-explanatory. Anyway, but I've decided to adapt that format for the wonderful world of YouTube and for Tom's Comedy Club, so we can branch out our stuff, not just me pretending to be funny for an hour, which never works. And if you have been watching all my interviews, lucky fan, you've noticed that my suit is different because the other one doesn't fit me anymore, which is quite sad. So Albert Flowerpot will have to change his suit, even if he does start causing a fight with me. I don't know how I can fight myself, but I can. But today, we've got a special guest. It's a special guest. She's best known as a comedian and best known for her podcast, Comedy Arcade. It's the one and only, it's the amazing Vix Leyton.
Oh, what an intro. I wouldn't know if I was best known as those things. I think I'm best known as a nuisance by my mum, to be honest. That's the level of fame I've achieved. So it's an honour to be asked on. Your guest list has been astonishing. So a bit intimidating. People from Doctor Who, Alex Horn, me. So let's see how that goes.
Yeah, let's see how it goes indeed. This is a brand new format for me. So here's how it will work. As you can see on the screen, dear viewers, there is a wheel. And this wheel, if you're into the Tom Mason universe, will know that it used to be for choosing what DVD I watched, and then the app crashed, and now I don't have that anymore. That took me 4 hours to get that done. Anyway, I'll cry, don't you cry. And so what will happen is I will spin the wheel and we'll get a question. We are only allowed 8 spins, so let's see if my maths comes out, because I'm not very good at maths. Let's see if this works. Let's see if I've not made it too tricky for myself. So let's spin the wheel for question number 1. When we spin the wheel, when you see a fire effect, that's because the app is amazing. Right, let's see what we get. Oh, it makes a noise as well. Forgot about that. There's a fire. Ooh. Hey, I probably didn't include the audio in the recording, but your first question is, what is a panel show that you would love to be on?
Well, do you know what? It's one of those things. I'd love to be on Mock the Week because it's completely iconic, and I feel like I've got a lot of hot takes on the news. And I think I'd be all right at that, but the dream would probably be Taskmaster, but I would be terrible at it because I'm really, really competitive and really bad at any kind of physical task. So I'd just be constantly on the floor having a tantrum. But I'm assured that could make good TV as much as being good at it. So yeah, it's a tie between those things. One where I feel like I might come out well, or when there's a real risk that I will show my worst side to a lot of viewers. So
well, when anyone goes on Taskmaster, you think, oh, they're really good, and then they come on and then they ruin the career. Paul Sinat is one who decided to wear a dressing gown and then didn't look as smart as he was.
Who's your favourite Taskmaster contestant?
I think the obvious would be Mike Wozniak, but I reckon it's got to be Judy Love.
I know, I just aspire to that level of just playing the game your own way.
Yeah.
There's something so inspirational about the way she played the game. She respected the rules she wanted to, disregarded the ones she didn't, and was just thoroughly entertaining doing it. I absolutely agree. She is definitely top 5 for me, for sure.
Yeah. Now, before we go on to the next question, here's a question that all fans of panel shows will want to know, have you seen any other version of Taskmaster other than the UK version?
I haven't actually. The only foreign version of a TV show I've ever watched was actually The Apprentice Celebrity, because I watched the Australian version of that, and it had Ross Noble on it.
Yes, he was hilarious on that.
Incredible. He was not only hilarious though, he was really good at it. I cannot stop talking about it. I watched, I reckon, all of the episodes in about 2 days. I just fell in love with it. I wasn't feeling very well, so I was off work. So yeah, I couldn't believe how good he was. And I was a casual admirer of Ross Noble up to that point, to be honest, because some of the surrealist stuff is a little bit too abstract for me. But yeah, I was completely converted. So
I think it was a hamster hotel he made, and none of them had really had no clue, because I don't think they're allowed hamsters. There was some rule where they're not allowed hamsters in Australia or something.
That sounds about right. You managed to sell it though, but that's a spoiler. People need to go and watch it for sure.
You definitely need to watch that. And then whilst we're on the recommendation train, just before we go on the next question, I recommend you all go and watch Clark. It's a Swedish crime drama that stars Ban Larsson, the Swedish Taskmaster, and a fellow Tom Mason Universe alumni, as I've interviewed her, and she hasn't spoke English in 2 years. So that's a really weird thing to ever get to say. Right, let's spin the wheel again. Let's see what's next.
Oh.
For the second time. Oh. Hooray! This is one of my favourite questions. Oh. What TV show, as a small child, little child, inspired you to get into this wonderful world we like to call comedy?
Oh, that is a good question. Comedy on primetime TV was probably a big factor for me. So I grew up in the era of people like Victoria Wood, Ben Elton, Joe Brand. So they'd be part of kind of everybody watched it because there were only 3 channels, variety show type things. So probably them. Eddie Izzard was my absolutely main influence on my comedy. I don't know how I came across him. I assume one of my parents must have been a fan, because I don't think any of her things were on TV. But I had all of the VHSs and I'd watch them as many times as I'd listen to albums that were my favourite. I was absolutely obsessed. That and Bill Bailey. And I think the thing about Bill Bailey that I still appreciate now, because I'm 37 now, is that there's just that it's really clever, that kind of stage sketch comedy, like your Harry Enfield sketches, where I could watch it as a kid and I got something out of it. But you could watch it as an adult and you were basically watching a completely different show. I think that's such art to manage to speak to both audiences in that kind of primetime TV way. And French and Swordness was another one. Those kind of sketch shows, Smack the Pony. Fiona Allen is on the stand-up comedy circuit now. Yeah. And she's incredible. But she started off open micing when I first started in comedy, and she is such a legend for women in comedy because she completely blazed a trail, and she just pop up at these like dive bar pubs in London just alongside us, do an absolute cracking set to about 5 people and a dog, and then just go off back to her fabulous famous life. It was surreal, but yeah.
And speaking of Bill Bailey, and not many people know it because British Comedy Guy never advertised it, but Bill Bailey's on Celebrity Gogglebox.
Amazing.
OT, I think I don't know if I'm asked how to pronounce the name, but he's OT Mabuse, I think, his Strictly partner, and they're quite good on that.
Oh, that's worth watching then. Yeah, I'm such a fan. It was so accessible and it was family friendly, but it was, looking back now, it's such an art to do stuff like that. I think the kind of comics that do break into TV in that way successfully, they make it look so easy that you can somehow be tricked into believing that it is, but you know that it's not. It's a proper art. So.
And Jennifer Saunders and Dawn French, I recently was rewatching Jam in Jerusalem because I recently got it for my birthday on DVD, all 3 series, and they are amazing. And it's even funny because Jennifer Saunders wrote it by herself, and she decided to do a scene where she had to be with Dawn French, and they were just like the best.
That's so cool. It's like, because I remember when Mel and Sue used to be daytime TV hosts, they used to do late lunch in the afternoon when I was about 11 or 12, and I was obsessed with them. Me and my best friend Anna had allocated who would be who. Anna was Sue because she was cooler. I had blonde hair, so I had to be Mel, but they were both cool. It's fine. I'm not jealous. I didn't get to be allocated Sue.
And now they're both actors in their hit sitcom Hitmen.
They can do it all though, can't they? I saw
Yeah.
Sue Perkins do her last tour in Southend Kids Pavilion, and it was incredible. It was such a tour de force of a show. You came away feeling like you were friends. It was like she'd had a conversation with you, even though you weren't part of it. I think that's such a spectacular thing to be able to do, to connect with people in a 1,000-seater room as though you chatted to them. It's, yeah.
Now we move on to question number 3.
Spin that wheel.
Yeah.
I only trust that you are just reading out the questions now and just picking the ones that you like.
Well, I like them all.
You wrote them all, so they're
yeah. I have to be biased. I write these things because I want to write them, not because I think they're be good for asking people. So this is a question that probably makes no sense when I'm looking at it, but it'll make sense in a minute. Okay. What was the first comedy you went to see? So like watch live comedy.
Oh, that is a good question. I think I probably first saw live comedy outside of an arena that maybe my parents would have taken me to at the Glee Club in Cardiff. And on Thursday nights and Friday nights, they'd have compilation nights where it'd be 4 comedians just doing a set. And that is, funny enough, where I first came across the comedian Mark Watson, who got me into comedy in the end. So it took like 14 years later, but I used to go, it was him, Russell Howard, John Richardson and Lucy Porter that were on the Glee circuit at the time. And it was a brilliant time for comedy. It was so cool to see. It's so cool to see them all so successful now, knowing that they started in a little room in Cardiff with me and my mate who used to go there at uni because we were too poor to really have any other entertainment.
Well, Matt Watson, as everyone says, is a gateway drug into comedy.
He really, really is.
Really
it's a scourge. He needs to be stopped. I was living a normal, sensible life with a normal, sensible job before I encountered him on Twitter.
There's you, Mark Watson.
He's the best. I can't complain.
We like him. And then John Richardson was also, fun fact, was on Gogglebox Celebrities this week. He was on with Lucy, where whenever he said something, Lucy got more and more angry and ended up having to go on him. And the house seemed too clean. Even though they've got a child, the house seemed too clean. I don't know how they keep it that clean.
Because John Richardson is so meticulous about cleanliness. That's why.
Yeah.
He was talking about that back on the circuit about 18 years ago, how he liked to put the cutlery in the right places in the drawer, and if people didn't, he'd lose his mind. So I can't imagine a baby has changed him in any way, shape or form.
Probably not. His money's probably helped. And to answer that question in my own right, because why not do more promotion? I first saw comedy this year, live this year was...
No way.
Yeah, because I'm not really going out first. And I don't leave the house unless I have to, or I've been forced to, whichever one, they're both the same thing. Was Stratagem with Alan Partridge. So Steve Coogan live at Stratagem, which was amazing, in the AO Arena in Manchester, which is a nice venue. And my dad learned about theatre that night because earlier in that week, my mum and brother were there for the Jubilee Street Party, and they had automatically changed it to make it Steve Coogan friendly, which my dad never knew theatre worked that well.
So much Alan Partridge just lives in my brain rent free. I will quote lines at people and I'm always so disappointed that they don't have the same level of knowledge that I do to appreciate them. So I actually, because my day job is PR, and I actually got to work on a client.
I walk into any room and no one understands what I'm on about.
You're a natural for comedy. Welcome. This is a safe space.
Because me being young, as I'm branded in the world sense of age, but I walk into a room and I'm probably the oldest person in the room. I sit next to someone and it takes them half an hour to understand what I'm on about, and they still have no idea what I'm on about. I'm whittering on about certain joke, and I'm showing them a video of this joke, and then they start laughing because they understand it, but then they don't understand it at the same time. So there's a teacher, when I was in college, because I'm finished now, there was a teacher who had one of Rick Mayall's books. And obviously, me and the teacher were the only people that knew who he was in the room. I think we might have
That's
started.
depressing.
We might have started a cult because we've started turning people into Rick Mail fans.
Everybody should be.
Yeah,
it should be taught on the curriculum.
Yeah. It definitely, because Drop Dead Fred is a brilliant film, and if you study media, you should watch it.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was one of my first ever crushes when I was a teenager, was Rick Mail specifically in that role. I don't know what it says about my mental health at the time, but I'm owning it. It's fine.
Right.
I stand by my choices.
Yeah. On that note, we move on to the next question before we end up becoming a Rick Mail fan club. This is question number 4.
Here we go.
I think we're just going to make it up now. I think I might be forgetting numbers here. Hooray!
Hey.
Here is another question that I really did hope came up, but the wheel got to choose. So this is relevant because it's currently June as of recording. So in 2 months' time, this will be happening. Let me reread that, right? What is your one piece of advice for someone performing at Edinburgh Fringe for the first time?
Well, technically, I don't really consider myself to have done it yet. So I did last year's, but it was a really stripped back mini version of Edinburgh Fringe. So I did the last week of 2021. I took my podcast, The Comedy Arcade, up as a live show. And I did one-off work in progress with my good friend and comedian, Kate Martin and Rich Wilson. And it was too good to be true. So I think I'm going to have a terrible reawakening of what I think Fringe is. So I went once as a punter, a couple of them, and I just got into comedy and I saw, I think, 5 shows a day. I could not get enough comedy and I was so excited at the idea of going. So just from the week that I had, though, I would guess my probably main advice is make sure you have as strong a support network as you can, because even if you're having a brilliant time, the week I had was brilliant, but it was so intense and so exciting and so stressful that I was frequently quite overwhelmed, and I'd cry about anything, like really silly stuff. Like there was no hairdryer in my Airbnb and I was weeping like a family member had died. So make sure you've got friends who understand you. Maybe keep some friends outside of Edinburgh Fringe as well, just to remind you that the world exists outside of the festival, because it was a bit like being in a massive sixth form holiday camp for that week. I'm in the market for advice, so I'll be listening very carefully to any other guests that are on this in case they've got some pills of wisdom.
Well, if you want to hear more about Comedy Arcade, stay tuned to the end, because we have some news that we're going to find out more about that aren't related to 8 Question, because obviously we love promotion in the Tom Mason universe here at TNGM Productions, where I only work there, no one else does. I could clone myself, but I would need that sheep machine to turn myself to a sheep. That's really off track and got nothing to do with anything. Why did I talk about Dolly the sheep? Oh, what was that?
It's a very current reference.
Yeah, very current as well. Many people understand who Dolly the sheep is, but we're not going to explain. We're just going to leave it as it is.
I had a moment of thinking that science was real for a second there. I was like, haven't we cloned humans? It was like, no, that was in Jurassic Park. What am I talking about? This is not real life. That wasn't a documentary I watched.
No.
Are we cloning other things now? No.
Not that I know of, but obviously any connections into the science world.
Maybe they are. Who knows? Maybe they just haven't shared it with us yet.
MI6, Area 51, get in touch.
It's just Area 51. It's just full of replicas of you and me just wandering around talking about Rick Mail.
And so if you want to see Edinburgh Fringe this year, you can all watch it. I was going to say for free, but it's not free. It's on Next Up Comedy.
So exciting. I'm so glad that they're doing that. I really hope, they haven't announced their roster yet, I really hope that they do some shows outside of the kind of big 4 promoters. So I know they've said that they're working with the Pleasance and the Assembly, which will be the big name comedians, but I expect they will, because they're brilliant supporters of new comedy. But I do hope people can experience like the real rough edge of the Fringe, where it's just a few people in a room experiencing something that in a few years you might see on Live at the Apollo. I think because that's as much part of the Fringe as anything else. So
And that's what Next Up Comedy does well. And before we go on to the next question, one thing that I found out today, as of this morning, was that Dominic Holland, father of Tom Holland, was, or probably still is, I only found out about him this morning, is a stand-up comedian that's on Next Up Comedy with Tom Holland.
No way! I didn't know that was a thing. But I knew they were, but I didn't know that they'd done anything together.
Well, he did his thing, but he brought his son to it just to get his reaction, and they interviewed him afterwards to make sure that Tom really does love his dad.
Just double checking. Yeah.
Just double checking. They weren't 100% sure at the beginning. They were like, oh, we're a little bit worried. They just wanted to double check to make sure that he was 100% happy with his father's decision in life.
Tom Holland is very, very funny as well. You can tell he gets comedy timing from.
Yeah. His dad's probably sat in the corner of every room whilst Tom's on TV wondering, where has my life gone wrong? Because Tom Holland is now more famous than him, which is rather sad.
I kind of want to believe that they are big in their fields and happy for each other. I just want the best. I just really want the best for Tom Holland. I don't know why. I don't want anything bad to ever happen to him. I feel like I know him. I feel very protective of him. It's a very strange vibe. But I want only good things in that boy's life.
We now know he can swing from buildings in New York and
he can dance to Rihanna, which every time you see that come up on Twitter, you have to watch it. It's just the law.
Yeah. Before we move on, my only other criticism about the Spider-Man films was, does anyone not realise he's not related to all the others because he's got a British accent, the rest of them are all American? Never come up in a conversation. The accent is a clear difference that he's not related to anyone.
Like Colin Farrell, though. Colin Farrell, whatever film he was in, he was always Irish, even when he was Alexander the Great. It's like some people just commit really hard, and such is their charisma that they get their own way on it. I respect it.
Right, let's move on to question number 5, hopefully. I'm making these numbers up now. Number 5. This is what happens when you're not very good at maths. And you
just jump forward, just trying to get rid of me. Bad enough already.
Right, so the next question is a very good question for people that might regret their life decisions. If you weren't a comedian, what job would you have?
Oh, I came into comedy very late, so I tried doing a real job for quite a long time because I only started in comedy when I was 35, and I thought I was doing all right in life. I loved comedy as a fan, but I had a phobia of public speaking, so I never thought I'd be able to do it myself, even though I enjoyed telling a story. You know, you enjoy telling a funny story in the pub and you sort of secretly think, maybe this could be for me. But as we are big fans of endorsing really cool people and brands that are nice to comedy, Funny Women, the organisation that does the Funny Women Awards every year, they are a not-for-profit that run workshops and courses designed for women to find their voices, whether that is to use for comedy or to use in business. So I did a stand-up comedy course for general life skills, which was an afternoon session with Lynn Parker, and some of the people I met in that room are still my friends now, and they're all doing well in different things. So Jen Smith is now big on Twitch, which is quite cool. Jenegade Master, check her out if you're on Twitch. Alexis Coward is an actor, comedian, but we all just came together in that session, and the lessons in it were common sense, and sometimes you need somebody to say it back to you before you can process it and take it in. And it was one of the probably single biggest shifts mentally I've ever experienced, and it only cost 50 quid, and I got to go to the Groucho Club, which is fancy, and occasionally there are celebs in there, so I cannot recommend the value of that enough. But before that I was doing, and I still am doing PR as well, so public relations for personal finance companies. It was very exciting. Worthy but not sexy.
And you can tell for you at day you're a PR person, and by night you're a comedian that makes people laugh. It's like I'm reverse.
Like a really weird Batman kind of vibe. I come out at night, put on my sparkly outfit, make people smile, hopefully.
And instead of tracking down criminals, you track down laughter.
That's the theory.
And then if it doesn't come, something's gone wrong. That might be the microphone. You always blame the equipment, not.
Yeah, it's like, is this thing on?
Yeah. And that's a very interesting question, because a lot of people had dreams before comedy, like James Acaster. I'm recently listening to his audiobook, Classic Scrapes, wanted to be a musician rather than a comedian, but realised that he enjoys listening to music, but not very good at the performing side. And so always live your dreams in precaution.
Yeah, I wanted to do music PR specifically, and then I ended up in personal finance. So that was the dream when I did my degree. But yeah, sometimes things don't work out, and that is fine, because sometimes what you get instead is better. So
now you're a comedian that runs a podcast that should be well known, but not enough people listen to it, which I'm upset about. So
podcasting didn't even exist when I was in school, so that wasn't an option. No one could have that as a job because it didn't exist. So who knows what jobs will be available to us in 10 years?
Probably picking up poo. Right.
I mean, that's always been available, that job. That is that's a very accessible career to aspire to. You can do some freelancing as well. I've got cat litter trays you can fix.
Work experience background. Right, let's go into question number 6.
Ooh, exciting.
Woo. Ooh, let's see if you've got good memory. What was the first joke you ever told?
Oh, it would be some kind of horrible cracker thing. Oh no, I remember it was a Christmas day. I was probably about 4 or 5, and my dinner had sort of rolled off the plate and onto the floor, like I tipped the plate over, and that included peas rolling off the table. And I said, "I'm really sorry, I've peas on the floor." And that was probably my first ever joke that I'd made. I was very pleased with it. It was toilet humor. I have not graduated far beyond that 30 years later. So
you were very pleased with it.
I was.
Yeah, and with Christmas, speaking of Christmas cracker jokes, if for anyone that doesn't watch my 9th channel, who would? It's me just being really weird, literally talking about bananas. I don't even eat them. Yeah, well, I made a video series that is currently waiting for its conclusion, where I attempt a Guinness World Record for the most jokes in a minute. Currently, the world record's 33 by some German bloke.
Oh, okay.
And the Christmas cracker jokes are probably the easiest jokes to do because everyone knows them, and they're easier to remember than a joke such as two guys walking to a bar, the third guy ducks.
Who decides whether or not they're jokes or not? How is the veracity of the joke assessed?
Well, if the audience go, "Oh, ha," then it counts.
Okay, that seems quite stressful. That's like doing a gong show, but on a even higher level.
And so the first bloke to do it did 26, and then he did it again on Newsnight without an audience, so it didn't work. When he dressed up as Tommy Cooper with a wooden goose on his arm whilst he was on Newsnight.
Sure, that sounds nice and normal.
And he ended the whole thing with "just like that." So he made a Tommy Cooper reference.
I did wonder if that's what was going to happen. I thought that's where we were going, Tom.
It was definitely gonna happen. But there you go. The saga is continuing. It's on hold at the moment whilst I went to go back to college, because obviously I don't have an audience nearby, sadly. Yeah, or indeed, we live I live in a very small place that we're famous for is a TV show such as Brassic. Right, let's move on to question number 7.
Getting through these too quickly. I'm having a nice time.
Woohoo! This is, what is your main ambition for your comedy career?
Oh, do you know what? I'm so staggered that it's got even this far, that every time I do something out of the realms of possibility, I think I can finish now. This is fine. This is done. It's never going to get any better than this. So I got to MC a comedy charity night a few weeks ago at Leicester Square Theatre, and it was sold out, and I got to bring James Acaster on stage.
Wow.
And Maisie Adam and Sindhu V, and it was just, I genuinely could not imagine a moment better. But before Christmas, I got to do Alexandra Palace as well, again for charity night with Russell Howard and Nish and Ed Gamble. And I'm just always backstage just feeling like a competition winner.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how I got here. So if I can just have enough of those moments over the rest of my life, I think I'd be pretty happy. So.
Well, the Leicester Square Theatre is recently. I was rewatching Richard Herring's podcast. I've interviewed him as well. He's very nice. Yeah, it's weird saying that. But he interviewed James Acaster, and they had said something that couldn't have happened anywhere else. They meant. So have you seen the Amazon Prime show Backstage with Catherine Ryan?
I haven't started watching it yet because I think my life will end once I've watched one until I've seen them all. So,
well, it's all about her backstage with talking to comedian, and Richard and then James both came up with that idea on that episode. In that night, this was like a few years before it even came that it was happening. So they should get some of the royalties. They need to fight for the royalties for that. Because it was their idea, not Catherine Ryan's.
Oh no way! Well, is she on it as a producer then? Or?
Well, I think she is. She does all the adverts. She's the star in it, and I think she created the concept. And she made it she's tried to make it look less staged than it is, because obviously she knows the cameras in the room.
Well, it's constructed reality, isn't it? Everybody knows that it's not really real backstage chat. Backstage chat is actually very boring. At the moment, it's all of us just looking at each other going, you going to Edinburgh, you going to Edinburgh, you going to Edinburgh. Why aren't you going to Edinburgh? Why are you going to Edinburgh? It's very expensive. So that's basically, I've just given you what happens backstage in every room in the next 5 weeks. It's a lot of posturing, a lot of chat about how accommodation's too expensive. It is not gripping. But
Nick Mohammed's on it as Mr. Swallow, and it always surprised me because I didn't know you could count character comedies as stand-up comedians as well. I only recently found that was possible to call a character comic as a stand-up.
I suppose they're separate genres. Technically, Mark Watson was a character comic when he was pretending to be Welsh. So it was him, just with a different accent.
and that's how life is, yourself with a different accent.
Yeah, I think a lot of comedies like that, you present a version of yourself, like either the best version or a stylized niche version.
Like James Acaster, he isn't himself, he's an alternate reality version of himself. All these weird situations, like being an undercover cop.
Yeah, or being a genie in a restaurant where you can have everything that you want, including your dead nan's lasagna. Like... Very
relatable comedy there. Everyone knows the struggles.
Yeah.
We all know what it's like to be an undercover cop, and they all know how to do. Because I was watching the podcast, and he was on about how his knees were hurting from starting on his knees, and he regrets having shin pads. I just thought it would have been funnier if he just walks in and, like, you watch all the specials, and the final special, he then wears knee pads. That would just be really funny. That he wasn't expecting to need shin pads. Now we move on to our final question before we get on to some non-wheelie stuff.
Okay.
It's really fun.
Hey.
That's the worst joke I've ever made. Right.
You have further to fall, honestly. I've heard worse jokes than that in pro comedy clubs.
Now, you might have already sort of mentioned this, but we'll see if you come up with a completely different answer. But who is the one comedian that you would love to be on the bill with?
Oh, that is a good question, actually, because I've been quite lucky with who I've been on with so far. That is tough, because I guess the beauty of comedy is it is so accessible. So sometimes in compilation nights you do end up with comedians who are beyond your wildest dreams. But I don't even want to imply that I'd have a favourite. It's too tricky. Oh, that is a very tough one. I think it would be really nice to be on with like somebody who started a little bit later in life as well. So someone like Sarah Millican, who's absolutely smashed it since, who kind of lived a bit of a life before, because Scott Bennett's a comedian that's done that as well. So he was a product designer, so had a really good job that was earning him lots of money, and had to make a choice between continuing in that career. And he said he had a lot of dentist appointments because he was running off to gigs, and doing comedy full time, and reached a fork in the road. And I think Sarah Millican was also had just a normal job, was living a very, very normal life, and then just something ignited. So I think it'd be great to be on a bill with someone like that to properly question them on the secrets and how.
Yeah, well, Sarah Millican's now famous for pretending to be asleep in her own audience. She made a video of explaining it, and it was a really good video. And then I just never thought anything of it. And Channel 4 love Sarah Millican because they always air her stuff. And I was watching one of them, and I got caught off guard. And because I had to rewind it just to double check that was Sarah Millican asleep, because they edited it so well of making it look like she was actually in her own audience and she was actually asleep.
Amazing.
Yeah, she's just very clever. So we've come to the end of the 8 questions, and one of the format points was to promote Edinburgh Fringe, but that didn't come up with the wheel. So the way this works is, if it doesn't come up with the wheel, we have to ask it anyway, because we're only doing this series when it's near or the Fringe is on. So before we go on to the news about Next Up Comedy, which we'll get onto in a minute, what is your Edinburgh show about, and where can they see it?
So I've got 2 shows at Edinburgh Fringe. So I've got one at 2:40, which is with Just the Tonic at the Mash House in the attic. So I get to haunt the attic like a Victorian ghost child for the whole month. And it's called More Fiction Than Girl. It's all about all the different versions of yourself that you present in life, because nobody necessarily fully gets the full unfiltered version of you. But depending on who you're with, you become kind of different people to fill those roles. And I guess it comes from being a PR person, because that's sort of your job. You kind of have to get on with everybody. You have to play the role you're assigned in terms of the clients that you're given, and sort of back them to the hill publicly, and also in comedy as well, because you have to present a version of yourself in the green room that maybe is a little bit more confident that you are. And yeah, so there's loads of different elements to your character, so it explores those a little bit, and the decisions that I make, and how they're often thoughtfully made decisions, but wrong. Like the thinking is deeply flawed, and the consequences of this flawed thinking in some of my life choices. So it's really fun. It's 3 years worth of probably a lot of 10-minute sets.
Yeah.
Loosely tied together in a narrative, but that's the best you can hope for. I think the dream for a first show for anyone is just people laugh and they go away and they like you as much as they did when they came in, and not anything less. So yeah, that's the dream for me. And Comedy Arcade, which is my podcast that I've made into a panel show. So for the live show, it's a little bit like this actually. It's got similar vibes, except I've got more people to manage, because I sometimes one-to-one conversations can be a little bit intense, whereas I quite like the chaos of putting 3 or 4 personalities together and not only hearing their stories, but hearing the others comment on their stories. Often we only get through 1 or 2 topics that I've drawn from the bingo board, because we get so deep in something or so far off track. But as long as it's funny, I don't mind. And I score people based on the things in their stories that I like the most. So basically I pick a winner. I'm open to favoritism. I like to be flattered. So that's kind of part of the show. It's a bit of a nonsense concept, really, but yeah.
And before we get on to talking about the next comedy thing, I would like to bounce from that. I also quite like managing a group of people. One, because I look so innocent, I can insult them and they won't take actual offense or anything I say. So I currently, and viewers of the Mason universe would know, I currently run 2 panel shows. One, which is all about Doctor Who, where I get Doctor Who YouTubers and people that do creative things with Doctor Who and insult them for a good hour and make up the scoring, because I am the worst at maths. So I just make up the scoring as like a QI type thing.
Same.
I just do whatever I like. And then the other one is Tom's Normal Jockeys, a fan-made version of the panel show Normal Jockeys, where I insult people, make them sing, because I don't want to get in trouble with Alex. So I get them to sing, and then we all sing, and then none of us can sing, but we all just sing because we like to. So also announced today, I think it was today, the Next of Comedy will be broadcasting live your podcast Comedy Arcade. What will this live show in 6 days, 30th of January at 8 p.m. You can either see it live in person or you can see it on Next of Comedy. Where is it going to be live if they want to go and buy tickets, watch it in person?
It is King's Place in King's Cross. So it's where the London Podcast Festival was last year and I think the year before. So it's the home of podcasting, really. So they've done like Guilty Feminist, Friends with Friends, Standard Issue podcast has been there. So I was lucky enough to do Comedy Arcade with them last year with Rich Wilson, John Robertson, Sean Smith, who is a podcaster and rockstar, and Esmanito. And this year it is Jenny Ryan from The Chase.
Ooh.
Rich Wilson, who is my Alan Davis, basically. If Comedy Arcade was QI, he's Alan Davis to my Sandy Toxic. I bully him relentlessly, but the show would not be the same without him. Jordan Gray, who was a semi-finalist on The Voice and is now a musical comedian who's absolutely outstanding. Going to quickly plug her Edinburgh show as well. It's called Is It a Bird? And the poster is one of the best Edinburgh Fringe posters I have ever seen. So check it out and check out his show. I think it's I think it's at the Assembly, but we're living together, so I need to learn this before August so I can properly plug her stuff. And Kate Martin, who I met when we were both quite new comedians, and she's doing astonishingly well on the club circuit. If she wasn't so nice, I'd be furious because she is being so successful, but she's also a brilliant person as well. So it's going to be a really good show, I think. And it is only £5. So I wanted it to be accessible to as many people as possible. So it is probably the best value Thursday night you can have in central London. There's aircon there if it's hot. I think, yeah, it's going to be a good show. And it's such an honour to have Next Up in filming it. I'm such a big fan of their work and such an anorak for their service that it's unreal seeing my podcast on the front page next to Richard Herring and Jen Brister and all those other idols of mine. So yeah, surreal. Very surreal.
It's going to be amazing, and I'll be there on the Next Up Comedy
in the chat.
Yeah, I'll be there. Like, woo! I'll be like a ghost. Woo!
Amazing.
You'll just see a ghost just appear every so often. Some of them having a conversation about how much they're enjoying it, and the next one will be, oh,
I absolutely welcome that engagement. So you should definitely do that.
Yeah. And so with this format started off with being an adaptation of Random 8, and then during the course of this, which is the first episode, it's changing rapidly because I can do whatever I want. It's up to me. It's my online comedy club. Now, what people tend to do is they make up what they're doing on the spot. So with the Edinburgh Fringe being so many comedians, so many jugglers, so many people, I think last year, because they didn't be Scotland, I think one woman was pouring milk on herself. Because
right?
BBC Scotland did a thing called Edinburgh Fringe Unleashed, I think. I don't know. It had Mark Nielsen doing it, hosted it, and it was like what they do with the Olympics and that when they bring them back, which is on, and he showed the image of this woman pouring milk on herself. You could spend £5 watching her chuck milk on herself, or spend £6 watching Harry Hill iron for an hour in a shed.
That's a tricky call.
Yeah, he had a podcast where it's like ambient noises. So
is Harry Hill good at ironing? Did you watch it?
I don't know. I didn't see it because I really thought.
You were watching the woman in the bath with the milk. I see. All right.
No, I didn't watch any of that. I thought if I wanted to see ironing for free, I could just go into my mum's office. I was cost effective. But his podcast, his first episode was an office, and it was his office noises. It's like car alarms, staplers, typing on a keyboard. Like that's it. And one word Harry Hill only says one word. Just throughout the episode, it's one word, and then that. So all you'll be doing is stood there in silence, ironing for an hour.
Just hearing the steam and just hearing that sounds, I'd probably watch that. That's kind of nonsense. I'd entertain.
Yeah. It's very much nonsense. But with the Edinburgh Fringe being so vast and wide, if you had to recommend a comedian to plug their show on this their wonderful show, which comedian would it be and why?
Oh, to come on with you?
Yeah.
Well, as a Whovian, I feel like you would get on with Andrew and Neil if you haven't met them already, because they are massively into Doctor Who. So you'd have a lot to talk about. And this, I'm not sure what the title of their show is, but I've seen a couple of bits and pieces of work in progress, and it's looking very, very good. I saw their show last year twice at Fringe, just because it was just that bloody good. So I would probably recommend Andrew and Neil as somebody to talk to, because they've got a really interesting take in life as well. It's the kind of comedy I aspire to. It's like I said, it's that kind of multi-level comedy where you've accidentally learned something and you didn't even want to. So yeah, they are fab. They've got a radio show out on Radio 4 tonight called Damned Andrew. What's the date today? Because I think it's the 21st today. So at the time of recording, the first episode is out tonight. So,
woo!
So yeah, there we go. They can have a free little shout out from me.
And so now, before we come to the end of this, because this is an experimental format, we can do whatever we like, I am going to plug some of my stuff to do with this channel, Tom's Comedy Club, obviously. So at the moment, as you will have seen, as of recording, because it's the 21st, so we literally just mentioned, and I had to look again. My memory's not that great.
So I didn't back myself as I was saying it.
No. And so yesterday, Monday, I released a teaser trailer to series 2 of my sitcom, The Misadventures of Albert Flowerpot, where he didn't realise that the suit didn't fit him, and so now he's wearing a new suit. Obviously, it really didn't fit me. Like a small.
In what way didn't it fit? Like Harry Hill style, massive collar, too small? Like, help me understand.
But the hat barely fits me. It's a hat. I'll
There's
find
a hat? Well, yeah. Come on, this is important knowledge.
Making a mess here, but the hat's somewhere. I chucked it somewhere. I remember chucking it. I don't remember where. Anyway, I see it. I'll get the hat. See?
I want the hat.
The hat. Right. Whilst I'm making a mess everywhere, which I'll quickly just pick up without ripping anything. This hat I got for my year 6 prom, and it still fits me.
Okay. Okay. So no growth whatsoever there in the cranium.
No, it's still. This is the only thing left that still fits me.
Okay.
Which is really odd. I'll just wear it now.
You've got a bit. So you give me sort of Justin Bieber early 2000s vibe there, but.
I mean, there's a photo of me because they said to me, right, kneel down. So I decided just to duck. So all they see me pointing at the floor. The whole photo is in black and white. Everyone else looking really smart, really happy, and it's me just pointing at the floor.
That sounds like the sort of thing I would do.
I'm destined for this. And then we also have Tom's No More Jockeys will be returning. Format. I'm going to the out the way now. The format will be changing slightly just to make it more original and more woo, more more woohoo. That's the word I use. And we'll also probably, hopefully, who knows what happens in the future. We'll also have more stand-up, which the first one went really weirdly because I forgot the canned laughter. I was supposed to add that in to make it more comical. Because when you film it on YouTube, you want to pretend to have canned laughter. And so there you have it. The next episode of this will come whenever. I think it might be the end of June, but I have asked a few other people, so hopefully they get back in touch with me very soon. Or not.
I am happy to recommend you. I've had a great time, so thank you so much.
And you'll also be able to see more nonsense from my interviews elsewhere, because I've got a few organised, so they'll be on other channels. Depends on what we talk about, because some of them are into everything, and it's a nightmare. They're into too much, and you'll be able to see more from me tomorrow, the next day, and forever. I'll never leave.
I cannot wait to binge watch loads of your channel stuff. I'm really excited.
I will be I'll dominate the world because I run 10 YouTube channels. No one, I don't know why. People ask me, where do you get the time? I say, I don't know. Don't ask me, ask someone else. I'm not.
Yeah. Why not?
Why
You're
not?
clever.
And going down the rabbit hole with Tom is also on the route for change. The comedy podcast will be altering so I don't end up sitting, looking really relaxed, talking about the chase, reading off Wikipedia. Yeah.
Oh, I've got Dara from The Chase is on my most recent episode of Comedy Arcade, actually, and he was absolutely brilliant. He was really fun.
Well, I sat there and read. I literally sat looking like I was ready to go to bed on a chair, reading every version of the chase ever from each country that it's available, and making some joke about one of them being like called like Death of the Night. It's on translation. No one knows why, but we shall leave it there because I have wittered on far too much, and you can't witter on for too long because, well, you'll be here all day and no one wants to be anywhere all day unless you're doing a 24-hour live stream for charity, which I haven't seen anyone do in quite a while. So
I know Watson didn't do one last year, did he? Or did he do one early on in the year? I'm trying to remember when the last one was. It might have been. Feels like it was over a year ago.
Yeah. And if you want,
dangerous thing to put out into the universe because it will manifest.
Yes. if you want to be on this channel, I just forget to mention this. If you want to be on this channel, I am looking for some comedians, not well known, because the people who aren't as well known are more likely to get back to me and to do 5-minute set for my own version of Live at the Apollo, where we're not at an Apollo, we're not in space, we're not live. I just walk into shot and go, here's someone else, and walk out. So that I don't have to do the work, someone else can do the work for me. I can just sit and relax and do nothing. It takes weight off my shoulder, but
sounds like MCing.
Yeah. I'm a pioneer of laziness. Yeah, that's the tagline. Tom Mason, the pioneer of laziness.
Going on your poster.
Yeah. So there we'll have it. There we have it. There we have it.
There we'll have it.
This is the first episode of One Comedian, 8 Questions. Who will be next? Who knows? Because I choose a random comedian that I might not know too much about, or I might know a little bit about. But I love Comedy Arcade, so why would I miss this opportunity?
I'm so excited to see what else you come up with in this format.
I'm also excited to see what I come up with because I don't even know. I might, the viewers, we don't know what's going to happen next.
That's the beauty of it. It's exciting.
Yeah. So we will be back next week. Not next week. We'll be back shortly with this series where there'll be more questions asked, there'll be more comedians questioned, and there'll be more discos. Woo! So thank you guys for watching, and remember, stay funny and don't watch Strictly. I don't know why I said that, but
okay.
bye.
Rules for life. Bye.
Yeah, the rules for life.